The PlayStation 2 and Xbox 360 eras were packed with iconic hack-and-slash games, but some absolute gems slipped through the cracks. While everyone was busy playing God of War and Devil May Cry, these brutal, stylish, and straight-up underrated classics got lost in the shuffle. Some were overlooked, some were misunderstood, and a few just released at the wrong time. Here are 25 hidden hack-and-slash games from the PS2 and Xbox 360 era that you probably missed, but absolutely need to play. Before God of War dominated PlayStation, Heavenly Sword was supposed to be its crown jewel. Released on the PS3 in 2007, it had everything: cinematic combat, a fiery red-haired protagonist, and even Andy Serkis lending his talent. But it got overlooked. Critics called it too short. Players brushed it off as a copycat. What they missed? A game with soul. The combat was smooth, the story emotional, and the ending, yeah, it left us hanging. A sequel never came. And the crazy part? Fans are still wondering why PlayStation just let it die. You've never played anything like No More Heroes. It's pure chaos. You're Travis Touchdown, an anime-obsessed assassin with a beam katana and a toilet for a save point. The bosses? Completely insane. The humor? Unhinged. But despite being a masterpiece of madness, it launched on the Wii of all consoles. Motion controls, awkward platform limits, and a market that wasn't ready. But here's the twist. Fans kept it alive. No More Heroes didn't just survive, it became a cult phenomenon that refused to die. Enslaved hits different. It's post-apocalyptic, sure, but it's also gorgeous, heartfelt, and deeply human. You play as Monkey, a brute forced to protect Trip, a tech genius who literally hacks your brain. The story? Based on an ancient Chinese tale. The world? Overgrown beauty and decaying machines. The gameplay? A solid mix of platforming and hack and slash. Critics praised it, but no one bought it. Bad timing? Weird marketing? Who knows? What's certain is this. If you missed Enslaved, you missed something special. This one went straight to hell. Dante's Inferno was EA's answer to God of War. Bloody, edgy, and completely unfiltered. You're Dante, slicing through the 9 circles of hell to save your beloved. It was wild. Demonic babies, grotesque bosses, religious controversy. And that's exactly why it flopped. It was too much. The sequel was cancelled. EA moved on. But years later, the game still slaps. Its visuals are unforgettable, and it never once plays it safe. That alone makes it worth revisiting. This game looked like a joke, until you played it. Marlo Briggs is what happens when someone mashes up Indiana Jones, mystical Aztec magic, and budget God of War energy. Explosions, combos, a talking skull that won't shut up. It's ridiculous. But it's also ridiculously fun. Nobody expected much. And that's the beauty of it. Marlo Briggs didn't ask to be taken seriously, it just wanted you to have a blast. And somehow, it nailed that. This wasn't just a spin-off, it was a lightning strike. Metal Gear Rising took Raiden from side character to Cyber Samurai, and the result? One of the fastest, most intense combat systems ever made. You could literally slice enemies and buildings into pieces. Pair that with boss fights that became memes and a soundtrack that melts faces, and it's criminal this game didn't blow up bigger. It was too different, too anime, too platinum. But those who know, they still sing its praises to this day. Alright, let's talk style. Afro Samurai wasn't just a game, it was a vibe. With Samuel L. Jackson voicing the lead, an original RZA soundtrack, and a visual style pulled straight from the anime, this game oozed cool. The combat was bloody and flashy, the bosses were epic, and the attitude? 100% unfiltered. But poor reviews and bad sales buried it fast. Then the sequel came out and was so broken it got removed from stores. But don't let that taint the original. The first Afro Samurai still holds up as one of the rawest experiences out there. Blades of Time looks like another generic action game until you realize it lets you rewind time mid-fight to clone yourself. It's wild. You play as Ayumi, a dual-wielding treasure hunter, blasting through ancient ruins with swords, guns, and time manipulation. It had ambition, even if the execution was messy. Critics barely noticed it and players skipped it. But here's the thing, it's better than it looks. Under the jank is a unique, creative combat system that deserves a second chance. This one? Pure anime chaos. X-Blades gave us a stylish heroine with guns, swords, and more energy than the game could handle. The environments were bright, the effects were wild, and the gameplay had serious potential. But it was dragged down by clunky design and non-stop criticism for its fan-servicey aesthetic. Still, the core was there. The ideas were solid. And guess what? Blades of Time? That was the sequel. Well, not really a sequel, but more of a spiritual successor. Most people didn't even know, and that's exactly why X-Blades belongs on this list. Alright, I know what you're thinking. Too human? Seriously? Let me explain. Yes, it launched to a mess. Yes, it was mocked relentlessly. But underneath the broken camera angles and weird stick-based combat was a game trying to do something big. You play a cyber-enhanced Norse god slicing through robotic enemies in a high-tech afterlife. It wanted to be part of a trilogy. It wanted to reshape the genre. It failed hard, but if you actually play it, there's ambition, there's style, there's something. Not perfect, not even great, but unforgettable in its own bizarre way. This is one of the slickest hack-and-slash games the PS2 ever got, and almost nobody played it. Bujingai throws you into a dystopian, anime-style future where you play as Lao, a gravity-defying swordmaster voiced and motion captured by Japanese rock star Gakt. Yeah, that Gakt. The combat? Lightning fast. You're wall running, mid-air flipping, and deflecting attacks with pure style. So why did it flop? Barely any marketing, no Western buzz. It looked like Devil May Cry's cousin and got overshadowed. But fans who found it know, it's a hidden gem with flair and flow that still holds up. If Devil May Cry had a goth twin raised by demons, it'd be Chaos Legion. This Capcom title dropped on PS2 and PC with a wild twist. You weren't just a sword-wielding anti-hero. You could summon entire legions of supernatural warriors to fight beside you. The aesthetic? Pure darkness. Cathedrals, curses, and crimson skies. The gameplay? Slow to start, but once it clicks, it becomes a tactical frenzy of slashing and commanding. Most players bounced off the steep learning curve. Critics didn't get it. But fans? They swear it's one of the most rewarding hack-and-slash experiences once you master the chaos. This one's brutal, both in story and rarity. Based on Osamu Tezuka's Dororo, Blood Will Tell follows Hyakimaru, a ronin born without limbs, eyes, or even a voice. Why? 48 demons stole pieces of his body, and now he's hunting them down to get it all back. Each boss fight literally returns a piece of him, turning your journey into a dark, bloody restoration of humanity. The combat? Solid. The world? Creepy. The vibe? Unlike anything else. But Sega barely promoted it, and physical copies are now insanely rare. If you ever get your hands on it, don't let it go. Before Elden Ring, before Dark Souls, From Software made Ninja Blade. And it was absolutely unhinged. You play as a modern-day ninja, slashing mutant parasites across skyscrapers, helicopters, and exploding highways. The combat is fast and satisfying, but what really sets it apart? The wild cinematic QTEs. One moment you're slicing a kaiju in half, the next you're surfing a missile mid-air. Critics called it a Ninja Gaiden knockoff. But here's the thing, it leaned into the ridiculous on purpose. It wasn't trying to be grounded, it wanted to be pure spectacle. And honestly, it nailed it. This game had everything going for it. Platinum Games pedigree, over-the-top characters, and brutal combat that blended hack and slash with wrestling-level mayhem. Anarchy Reigns was a multiplayer brawler with a comic book soul. Fistfights, chainsaws, mutants, and tag team carnage, all set in a crumbling, post-apocalyptic world. It was stylish, it was wild, and it launched to dead silence. Why? Bad timing? Terrible marketing? And almost no one knew what it even was. But dig beneath the dust, and you'll find a combat system that's deeper than it looks, and a roster full of cult-favorite chaos. Drakengard is one of the weirdest, most unhinged hack-and-slash games ever made, and somehow it gave birth to Nier. You play as Kame, a rage-fueled warrior who forms a pact with a dragon to rain destruction on a twisted medieval world. The combat? Janky and repetitive. The story? Dark, disturbing, and borderline insane. We're talking cannibalistic characters, incest themes, and endings that broke players' brains. It was messy, controversial, and totally unique. Critics didn't get it. Players were split. But those who stuck with it, they witnessed the beginning of one of the most fascinating game universes of all time. A brutal and blood-soaked fantasy tale that slipped through the cracks, Knight's Contract puts you in the armor of Heinrich, an immortal executioner cursed to protect a resurrected witch. The gameplay is frantic and unforgiving. Think big scythe swings, explosive spell combos, and boss fights that don't hold back. It's clunky at times, sure, but there's a weird charm in its dark European folklore setting and over-the-top violence. You're not just hacking enemies, you're literally ripping them apart while protecting your squishy AI companion. If you're into grim fairy tales with a ton of gore and don't mind a few rough edges, this one's worth revisiting. Viking was ambitious, maybe too ambitious. You play as Skareen, a silent warrior chosen by the gods to lead the charge against Hell's undead army. The hook? Massive open battlefields where you'd free soldiers, call in dragons, and dive into huge cinematic wars with hundreds of enemies clashing at once. The sword combat was brutal and raw, with decapitations and limb chops that never held back. But technical issues, repetitive missions, and rough pacing held it back from greatness. Still, under all that, a raw, myth-soaked gem that delivered on scale and atmosphere like few others of its time. Alright, this one's rough, but fascinating. Released for PlayStation 2 and Xbox back in 2002, Blade 2 let you step into the boots of the Daywalker himself. The concept was killer. A gritty third-person action game where you slice through hordes of vampires with your iconic sword and slick martial arts. It even had an experimental control system where the right analog stick handled all your attacks, a bold move for its time. The execution? Clunky. Critics tore it apart. But under the jank was a cool combat concept, stylish vibes, and one of the earliest attempts to bring Marvel into full-on action gaming. It's not great, but it's a piece of gaming history worth digging up. Before From Software became the kings of pain with Dark Souls, they dropped Otogi, a dreamlike, mythological hack and slash that felt like slicing through a watercolor painting. You play as Raiko, an undead warrior cutting through waves of demons in a crumbling, ethereal world based on Japanese folklore. The combat was floaty, destructive, and beautiful, with environments that shattered and exploded around you mid-fight. It wasn't fast like Devil May Cry or polished like Ninja Gaiden, but it had something else: style, mood, and atmosphere that stuck with you. If you've never played it, you're missing one of the most underrated games From Software has ever made. This game had one of the most awkward E3 moments of all time. Yes, the infamous giant enemy crab meme. But behind that PR disaster was actually a pretty decent samurai hack and slash. Genji, Days of the Blade was a PS3 launch title with cinematic presentation, traditional Japanese settings, and 4 playable characters, each with unique weapons and styles. The combat was flashy, the visuals were ahead of their time, and the boss fights had real scale. But it got roasted in the press, written off as shallow, and overshadowed by bigger PS3 hits. Still, if you judge it on gameplay, not memes, it deserves way more respect. N3 looked like Dynasty Warriors on steroids, and honestly, that's what made it awesome. This Xbox 360 exclusive threw you into massive, screen-flooding battles against armies of hundreds. You played as mythic warriors in a high fantasy war, carving through endless waves of enemies with devastating combos and flashy special attacks. The story? Generic. The voice acting? Rough. But the sheer scale? Insane for its time. Critics brushed it off as mindless, but fans who stuck with it found a surprisingly addictive power fantasy that delivered exactly what it promised: chaos, combos, and carnage. Yes, this game is exactly what it sounds like, and it's somehow even cooler than you'd expect. Samurai Western puts you in the sandals of a lone Japanese swordsman who storms into the American Wild West, cutting down gunslingers with nothing but a katana and godlike reflexes. Bullets? You deflect them. Enemies? you slice through dozens at a time. The gameplay is fast, flashy, and packed with arcade energy. It doesn't try to be deep, it just wants to make you feel like an unstoppable force of nature. It's weird, it's wild, and it's a forgotten PS2 gem you've probably never seen on a shelf. Nightshade is the kind of game that punishes you hard, but rewards you with pure style. It's the sequel to Shinobi on PS2, but this time, you play as Hibana, a deadly female ninja slicing through futuristic Tokyo with acrobatic speed and vicious combos. The catch? One wrong move and you're done. The difficulty is brutal, the platforming is precise, and the boss fights will humble you. But if you can master the flow, chaining together kills without touching the ground, it feels like ninja poetry in motion. Most people gave up early, but the real ones know this game goes hard. This one's pure Suda 51, meaning it's stylish, weird, and completely unapologetic. In Killer is Dead, you play as Mondo Zappa, a government assassin with a katana in one hand and a cybernetic arm in the other. You're sent to execute dangerous criminals and twisted monsters across dreamlike, neon-lit stages that feel like a fever dream. The combat? Fast and bloody. The visuals? Cell-shaded eye candy. The story? Totally bonkers. Critics didn't know what to make of it, and the game got buried under bigger 2013 releases. But if you want to hack and slash with serious attitude, this one cuts deep. So, there you have it, 25 underrated hack and slash games that got overlooked, buried, or flat out forgotten. Some were ahead of their time, others were beautiful disasters, but all of them worth revisiting. Now here's the real question. How many of these have you actually played? And which hidden gem did I miss? Drop your pick in the comments, because if there's one thing we know, it's that the best games aren't always the ones on the front page. And hey, if you love this kind of deep-cut gaming content, you already know what to do. Stick around, we're just getting started.